Today we will learn about voice or voice change. This is a very scoring chapter with respect to SSC exams because in CGL and CHSL tier 1 exam at least one or two questions are given from this chapter, and in case of CGL tier 2 or mains at least 20 questions are given which are almost easy to answer correctly. I can say this is a scoring as well as easy chapter to get number. So let's start. Now, if I consider any simple sentence, it will at least consist of three parts. Those are subject, verb, and object. Now, in a sentence, a verb can tell us about what a person or a thing does. So, therefore, I can say a verb is said to be an action on the part of doer or subject. If I take this example, the boy is doing homework. Here, the subject is the boy, object is homework, and is doing is the verbs, where is the auxiliary verb and doing is the main verb. So, this sentence is consist of three parts. This subject, this verb, and this object. So, now we will come to the voice part. That is, the voice is divided in two parts, that is active voice and passive voice. Now, what is active voice and passive voice? In case of active voice, the subject is active. Like this sentence, which is in active voice, the sentence will begin with a subject, where the subject performs the action or the subject is active. Like here the boy is doing homework. This sentence is focusing on the boy. The boy is doing homework. Now, in case of passive voice, sentence will begin with an object where the subject is no longer active or the subject is acted upon by the verb. Here, if I take this example, the homework is being done by the boy. Here, homework is the subject which is actually the objective case, and the boy is the object which is actually a subjective case. Now, why we need passive voice? Can I say here homework is doing? We cannot say that because homework is not a live object. Homework is done by someone. There must be a doer who will do homework. Homework cannot be done itself. So we need a doer, and here the doer is the boy. So homework is being done by the boy. Now we will consider some more example. Here are some examples are given. If I consider the first three examples, that is, she sits, he came, he is going out. Can we convert it into passive voice? Because there is no object. She sits. I can also say that she sits on the bench. Then the bench will be the object. But she sits is also a complete sentence. He came is also a complete sentence. He is going out, also a complete sentence. But we cannot convert it into passive voice. But in case of last two example, I will do it. He eats rice. These sentences consist of object. If I want to convert the fourth sentence into passive voice, that is, I will do it, it will be done by me. The last one, he eats rice. The passive voice will be, rice is eaten by him. But in case of first three examples, we cannot convert it into passive voice. But why? Because without any object, we cannot convert it into passive voice. object is must. Now what is special in these what is special in these three examples? It is because of its verbs. These verbs do not need any object to complete a sentence, but these verbs need. If I say he eats, it doesn't make sense. If I say I will do, it doesn't make sense. I need an object at the end of the sentence. Now come to this point, that is, verbs are two types of verbs are there, that is transitive verb and intransitive verb. We will learn in detail in later session. So here transitive verb is that verb which requires an object, that is she writes a letter. If I say she writes, it doesn't make sense. There will be an question arise that what she writes. She writes what? She writes a letter. If I say she writes, that doesn't make sense. But in case of intransitive verb, they doesn't require any object. If I say she cried a lot, it is a complete sentence. It doesn't need any object. But without object, passive voice cannot be formed. So hence, we can say that intransitive verbs do not admit passive voice. But there is also some verbs used in both ways, in both types, in case of intransitive and also in case of transitive. Like an example, if I just say go, that can be converted into passive voice. The passive voice of these will be you are ordered to go. This is a special case. This is in case of imperative sentence. We will learn it later. Now, next. So now we can say the form of an active and passive voice will be this. In case of transitive verb, the active will be subject plus transitive verb and object, and its passive will be object plus to be verb plus past participle of the transitive verb and plus subject. And in case of intransitive verb, there is only subject plus intransitive verb and there will be no passive voice of this sentence. Now, what is this to be verb? This to be verb has two types of uses. One is auxiliary in case of auxiliary verb, and the other case is in case of ordinary verb. These auxiliary verbs are is, can, could, may, shall, etc. Now we will learn about the rules of the active and passive voice with respect to state of an action in each tenses. So let's start with indefinite. So in case of present indefinite, the active form will be subject plus present form of verb plus object, and its passive will be subject, which is actually objective case, plus am or is or are plus past participle of the transitive verb plus by plus object, which is actually subjective case. So here I have taken very simple example, that is, if I say in present indefinite tense that she eats rice, then what will be its passive voice? So here the object is rice, so rice will be the first one, and next will be the auxiliary verb, that is either am or is or are. Now it will be is, and the third form of verb eat is eaten, and then will be by, and the subject she will be her, the pronoun. So it will be rice is eaten by her. Now there can be a confusion, that is whether it will be is or are after rice, that is whether rice is countable or uncountable noun. Now this kind of nouns like rice, sugar, salt, these are mass noun. We can use it in countable as well as in uncountable, but in this case it will be uncountable. If I refer to the kinds of rices, variety of rices, then it will be in countable noun. So generally in this case it will be in uncountable noun. So here will be it is. Rice is eaten by her. Next one is past indefinite. In case of past indefinite, the active form will be subject plus past form of the verb plus object, and the passive form will be subject, which is actually the objective case, plus was or were, that is the auxiliary verb, plus past participle of the given verb, plus by, plus object, so which is actually the subjective case. So the example I have given here, that is she ate rice, and its passive will be rice was eaten by her. Rice was is the auxiliary verb, eaten is the past participle of the verb eat. Next one is future indefinite. Future indefinite, the active form will be subject plus will or shall, that is the auxiliary verb plus verb 1 plus verb 1 means the present form of the verb plus object, and the passive will be subject plus will or shall plus be. We have mentioned earlier that there will be a to be form in case of passive voice, and here is the example. Will or shall plus be plus third form of the verb, that is past participle of the verb, plus by plus object. So in this case, she will eat rice, it will be in passive voice, rice will be eaten by her. So these are the cases in case of indefinite tense. Now I consider the continuous portion. In case of present continuous, the active form of the verb will be subject plus am or is or are plus the fourth form of the verb, that is first form plus ing plus object, and the passive form of the active form is subject plus am or is or are plus being plus past participle plus by plus object, that is she is eating rice, it will be the rice is being eaten by her. These are very general rule. We can easily remember these rules if we go through once. So next one is past continuous tense, and these are the forms in case of active and in case of passive. So if the example is she was eating rice, then it will be rice was being eaten by her. And in case of future continuous, it doesn't admit the passive voice form. So we should remember that in case of continuous, present and past is okay, but in case of future continuous, passive voice form cannot happen. So next one is perfect. In case of present perfect tense, the active and passive form will be this, and the example is she has eaten rice. This will be rice has been eaten by her. I have taken examples are same in each case to understand it easily. So this is in case of present perfect tense, and in case of past perfect, this is the form of active and passive, and the example is she had eaten rice, and it will be rice had been eaten by her. And in case of future perfect, the form of active voice will be subject plus will or shall plus have plus third form of the verb plus object. And in case of passive voice, the subject, which is actually the objective case, plus will or shall, then have, then been, plus third form of the verb, plus by, plus object, which is the subjective case. That is, she will have eaten rice, and the passive voice will be rice will have been eaten by her. And the last state of action is perfect continuous, but in case of perfect continuous, it also does not admit passive voice. So we need to remember that in case of future continuous and in case of perfect continuous tense, passive voice doesn't form. So we have covered all types of general rule in this video lesson. In the part 2 of this video, we will learn what happens in case of interrogative sentence, imperative sentence, etc. And there is a long list which do not obey the general rule. We will learn about all the exceptions in the next video and also discuss about some previous year questions. So, thank you. That's all.